And for any of us that are looking at something that matters, the fact if you're busy, that's interesting. But being able to understand that if something matters and you're busy, you're going to have to figure out a way to make it work, but only if it matters.
So how many times do we make a mistake? We are human beings. Everyone makes mistakes. And then we get in this circle of, I should have done this. I should have done that. If I wouldn't have done this, this wouldn't have happened. And we just like spin out of control with our thoughts sometimes. Welcome back to Unapologetic Rabble-Rousers. I'm DocShellie.
And I'm Carla Lewis. And we are, Michelle, this is
Carla.
our 52nd episode.
Crazy.
I know.
Who would have ever thought when I came to you a year and a week ago and said, Carla, I had this crazy dream. We were doing a podcast or a radio show. And then I don't know what, 2 weeks later, we were live.
That's exactly how it came down, too. It was ridiculous, but it was so us, number one, but it was also just so exciting. And I think when you take a look at those new adventures, that just, especially the ones that just pop out of seemingly nowhere. It popped out of a dream. And the notion that there's such excitement when something new comes along. And we scrambled, and you can see it. If anybody has not looked at that introductory episode that we put out,
it's on YouTube.
It is, yeah. It's 8.5 minutes of comic relief and some serious talk too. But it was this introduction saying, yeah, we're doing this, with things falling down in the background,
falling around us.
Right.
Random noises.
Which happened to this day. However, the notion that we could take an idea and just do it. We could do it ugly. We could do it fast. We did it because we wanted to. And we knew we would learn as we went.
Yeah. What's really funny, what you just said, we did it ugly. It was far from perfect. It's still far from perfect, which is really funny for both of us because we want things to be right and impactful and darn near perfect. And with this, it was like, let's just go. We'll figure it out as we go along. And we had some sound issues. We've improved everything along the way. So we've learned a lot. But it's just humorous to me that both of us are that it's got to be darn near perfect before we release it. We're like, let's just go. Let's just do it.
What happens? I mean, who can we hurt?
Yeah,
besides ourselves.
Besides ourselves.
But
yeah.
I think there's really a tremendous lesson in that, because when we wait until everything is perfect,
we would not be recording our 52nd episode. We might be on number 2.
Maybe. And it would have had 16 takes already.
Oh, at least.
But being able to just seize on that energy, said, okay, this is something we're not familiar with at all. And I want to, can we spend a moment on that notion of perfection? Now, you and I both have independent pursuits that we've taken as we've moved along from some of the corporate experiences we've had. You have engaged in another one, and all of that, there's excitement. Even when it's hard, there's excitement that comes along with that. But one of the things that I'm picking up on my independent pursuit is that, and in fact, I voiced it today, is that when I was working for somebody else, I never played small. I was all in and everything. And even then, it wasn't about perfection, but it certainly was about good intention, focus, the notion of do no harm. But if you have to give a hug along the way, that's okay too. And that was the energy that we brought to this dream, to put it into reality, that it didn't have to be perfect. It was going to be what it was. And but can I say this? At the heart of it all was being able to give voice to things that needed to have a voice. And unapologetically, we were ready and wanting to do that.
For sure.
Being able to seize on that energy that comes from something new,
Mm-hmm.
which means something else ends, like the anonymity, for instance, as one of many things, right? There are endings that lead to these new beginnings. And it has been, wasn't just, it has been and remains exciting and scary
Mm-hmm.
in some regards.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember a couple weeks ago, so for our listeners, Carla has been super busy with all sorts of speaking engagements and radio shows and working on her business, which is incredible. Change stuff for organizations. I asked you, so I know we've had a lot of fun doing this, and I won't be offended whatever your answer is. Do you have room to continue this podcast? And I didn't know what your answer was going to be. So I had thought through, like, do I want to ask this question? Because I want to continue and I don't really want to do it by myself, but I would.
Yeah.
And so I really wasn't sure what your answer was going to be. And you didn't even hesitate. You're like, no, this is all part of the plan. Like, we're doing this.
Absolutely.
But I was ready for you to say, no, my priorities are changing right now. I was fully ready for that conversation and to see what we would do what we would need to do to go forward with or without the podcast. Mm-hmm. So I was obviously thrilled that you were like, nope, we're doing this.
I think there is a need that gets filled. And while we have not done a lot to advertise, we haven't done a lot to scream and shout that, hey, this is here and you should really listen to it and spread the word, though we do invite those who do listen or watch to be able to, if there's some fun and or value in the messages that we're putting out, even every once in a while, share it.
Yeah.
Because this is all about us we're giving our thoughts, but they're coming from our hearts. They are all, even when we're chewing on the really tough stuff, they're coming from our hearts. And so considering bringing an end to that just because busyness sets in, no. And for any of us that are looking at something that matters, the fact if you're busy, that's interesting. But being able to understand that if something matters and you're busy, you're going to have to figure out a way to make it work, but only if it matters.
Yeah, it's got to be a priority of some level to continue it and not just doing it because before we started airing, I was talking a little bit about choir and how much I love doing it. But with all my pickleball priorities and work and this and my business, I was like, I don't think I can do that this year. And I know it's disappointing to me. Some of my friends were disappointed. People in the choir were a little bit disappointed. It's important and it's fun for me. But when I list out the fun prioritizing elements, it wasn't super high on the list, unfortunately, this year.
We can look at that as well as a great example of the boundary management. We look at the book that you have just published and understanding that those boundaries really do empower. And I'm not trying to take anything away from what is your wheelhouse for sure, but we have covered it so often in bits and pieces through the episodes that we've recorded. So being able to say, you know what? I love it all. Okay. Now,
yeah.
There's
I love it all, but I can't do it all.
There's 24 hours in a day. And our priorities shift, and that's okay. But I have this thing about being able to, I'm sorry, I'll probably clean that up. The notion of this helping people to scope and understand what it takes to make a change in their lives, whether or not it's something that they chose. There are people who are forced into change. That it's not anything. If there had been a menu of things, it wouldn't have been even on the menu. But life happens. Life keeps lifing. So
life keeps lifing.
It does. And so being able to take a look at those things and say, you know what, every once in a while, the shift of focus is required, and people are going to be affected because if you start something, there's usually something that stops as a balancing part of that equation. And so being able to look at the fact that you had to withdraw, you had to is the wrong way to present that. You made a choice about the things that were going to get your attention.
Right.
And there wasn't anything ill-intended about making a choice that the choir was not going to be that above the line part of your life for now. And the people who love you and who enjoy being able to work/sing with you and all of that, they're going through a change and they didn't even have a choice in it. Even your choir director who is, you're coming back, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And so when we start something new, there's usually something else that is going to maybe be put on pause and helping to just make that okay for self first. Because how many times have we said, I should?
Oh, no, I don't
should?
should my way through life. Hell no.
I love that line. I just love it. Don't should all over yourself.
Don't should your way through life. It's not worth it.
It isn't.
It's
And
not worth it.
And right now, we had, in our last episode, we talked about being, it wasn't quite how we phrased it, but it was being safe during the holidays when it came to the appearances and the gatherings and the shoulds that come along. That's a tough one. And when you find yourself shoulding all over yourself, I mean, what's really going on right there, Michelle? What's really going on when we're engaged in shoulding?
Shoulds. Sometimes it's hindsight, right? Is I can look back and go, oh, I should have made this decision and not that decision. Too late. And I can't go back and I don't get a redo. I can take that information and I can do things different going forward. But I had a conversation with someone the other day, and I think I actually used this as an example on our last podcast about somebody who has to go to a family gathering at her in-laws. She hates it. She does not like going. She's a super introverted person. She does not like going. And her deal was, they're all going to get mad at me if I don't go. And I was like, you're going to go and you're going to regret it. You're going to wallow in it for days.
You're going to hate it.
Why is that more important? Why is that less important than they're going to be disappointed? Frankly, there's so many people there. Are they really going to miss you? And you don't want to be there. You'd rather lock yourself in the bathroom than go to this thing. So she said this year she wasn't going to go. And she told her husband, and he was like, thank God. She was like, what do you mean, thank God? And he was like, I don't have to listen to you for the entire week talk about how much you hated the Christmas party. He's like, stay home, watch your Hallmark Christmas movies that he hates, enjoy yourself. I'll bring you a plate of food. And she was like, for 10 years, I have not wanted to go to this party. And I've always told myself I should because it was the right thing to do. And of all the people who she was most worried about disappointing, it was him. And his reaction was just literally, thank God you don't want to go.
Man, so
10 years.
Everybody take a moment. Just take that moment and consider how many of those non-conversations are you carrying on your shoulders, especially we talk about family gatherings. It could be it's the holidays. It could be a wedding, or it could be it's the summer
family
outing
picnic.
That we always have to go to. It's like, oh my God.
Birthday parties. Yeah, the list goes on and on. But yeah, she just crafted this big story in her head that she was just going to let everyone down and her husband was going to be mad at her. I loved his reaction. She said, did you coach him? I said, no. I wish I would have, because that was a pretty brilliant reaction.
I think maybe he listens to the podcast. Who knows?
But yeah, so it's just interesting how much pressure, how much I don't know if pressure is the right word, like how much we can put on ourselves when we think about we should do something for other people. What are we doing for ourselves?
And
Self-care is important.
it's huge. It's huge. We talked about that today when I was having
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of an issue and I'd stepped back and I felt bad about it when I stepped
Because
back
you
in
never
because
do that.
I'm not good at it. I'm not very good at it. But it's okay. Oh, look what happened. Look what happened when I took care of myself. Now I'm
Yeah.
behind schedule and then this and then that. So this notion of should, I think it's really important to be waving that flag that says no more shoulds.
Yeah.
When you are compelled to say that's something I should do, there's two sides then to the inquiry. Why? Where's the should coming from? And then what if you didn't?
Right.
What if you didn't? And this is again getting back into boundaries that
Mm-hmm.
truly empower. It's about establishing some space to let yourself, for that nanosecond that takes for your brain to go through those 2 bazillion
Right.
instructions that it's trying to contemplate. The question, why should you? What's with the should?
Mm-hmm.
You gotta cut that should out.
But
Come on. But bump is for sure. But it's true.
And you know what's interesting? If we can go back to your example of you taking a little break today, which Carla does not take breaks. She's a workhorse. But I love that you had someone text me to say, hey, Carla's running 10 minutes late. And I was actually relieved by, oh, good. Because I was scrambling around trying to get stuff done. And I thought, okay, now I can breathe a little bit. So thank you for being late.
Yeah, you never know what favor you.
But you came on and I'm so sorry. I was like, don't be sorry. You gave me, like, I'm good. And I love that I have a friend who's notoriously late for everything. And she has started saying, instead of, I'm so sorry I'm late, she started saying, thank you for waiting for me. And it's just such a different way of acknowledging you waited for me and I don't know what happened. So why I'm not going to apologize for it. It's going to happen again, first of all. But I just thought, what a great way to acknowledge that I have patiently sat at this restaurant reading my book, because I always take a book because I know she's going to be late. And thank you for waiting for me versus, oh my God, I'm so sorry I'm late. Just like I always say it, words change worlds. And so just how we present ourselves in those situations, I think makes a big difference too.
I had one of those faux pas because I really am quite fastidious about appointments.
Fastidious.
And, yes, except not today. Completely neglected an appointment. Didn't quite make it to my calendar, which was on me. And I was so looking forward to getting together with this person who's a part of my work past and had reached out specifically after all of these years, right? We're going to get together. And it never made it onto my calendar.
Oopsie.
And and so we hadn't established, okay, we knew a date. We just weren't really sure where. And because that detail was missing, I had not completed, for some reason, putting the appointment on. And I got the email about 40 minutes after what would have been the appointed time saying, I'm sorry it didn't work out this time. Let's look for early next year. Very gracious note. And oh my gosh, cat o' nine tails, self-flagellation. Oh my God, I can't believe I am such a shit. And I reached out by email, reached out by phone, left a message, and we connected about an hour later and had a wonderful conversation. And it was like, no big deal.
Right.
And life does happen. And,
Indeed.
but you feel there's like this disappointment that sets up and says, damn it, I'm better than that. I don't do that. And this week has been kind of odd in that way. A lot of
So
things.
what are you making it mean for you when you forget something like that?
Yeah, what am I making? I'm disorganized. I am irresponsible. I have no right to consume air on the planet.
And how many of those things are actually true?
Used to have fun with it. Nobody loves me. Everybody hates me. Go out to the garden, eat worms. Big, fat, juicy ones, little tiny, skinny ones go out in the garden and eat worms. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's because I try to hold myself. That sounds so lame. I hold myself to a high standard. And when I fail my own standard, I have a serious issue with that. This is, by the way, online coaching.
I was going to say, I just flipped right over to coach on you.
You just don't know.
You can't help myself sometimes.
You just don't know what love and luck is until you have a dear friend who also happens to be an awesome coach who has no issue bringing shit like that up. And because I so love and admire her, I have no issue whatsoever receiving it. But thank you, coach.
But I'm gonna just use that as an example, right? So how many times do we make a mistake? We are human beings. Everyone makes mistakes. And then we get in this circle of, I should have done this. I should have done that. If I wouldn't have done this, this wouldn't have happened. And we just like spin out of control with our thoughts sometimes. So it's really important to be able to just stop that cycle. Like, it happened. It's not a big deal. Like, nobody got hurt. Nobody was injured. Nobody was maimed or murdered.
And it can't
not that big of a deal. And it can't unhappen. Exactly. It's amazing how hard we can be on ourselves for little things that really don't matter.
Do you have issues with that at all?
I used to, but not anymore. I really don't.
What changed?
A lot of thought work. I talk back to my brain all the time. We have what we call like a CEO brain, and then you have your habit brain. And the two don't really like each other a whole lot because the habit brain is trying to keep things easy and simple for you. So routine. Your routine does not include, I'm going to take a 2-hour nap in the middle of the day. So your CEO brain is saying, Carla, you need a nap, and your habit brain's over here going, we got work to do. I got to keep going. I've got a million things I've got to get done today. And that habit brain takes over your rational thinking. And so I've really learned how to manage those two brains to talk to each other and get along. I know it sounds ridiculous, but if you look at the neuroscience of it all, we create these neural pathways in our brains that are habits, and our brains really are designed to keep life easy for us. So as soon as we start to build a new habit, do something differently, the brain is like, oh my God. First, it might feel really exciting. And then, what? This is too much work. I don't want to do this. This doesn't feel right. That's all your habit brain. So my CEO brain comes in and was like, listen, this is how things are going to be today. Let's just try it out and see what happens. So my CEO brain has gotten really good at combating the habit brain.
We have talked so often about that notion of the mindset, the mind work. Mm-hmm. And you have reflected, if not every episode, most of them, about the value, the importance of slowing both of those brains down enough to write, to journal, and to reflect, and let that process help illuminate what it is that's really going on. And then you have this opportunity to make peace with it in whatever way that comes out. Mm-hmm. So that whole notion about being able to reflect on the shoulds or those things that habit interferes with or actually is the reason why things go haywire, all of those things, being able to take the moment, be able to stop, drop, and roll. Think about it. Really, sometimes don't you feel like that? Not you in particular, but that because you've been able to do this work, there's that notion that all of a sudden things are on fire. Okay, and if you don't have a good practice, you don't have a good process of being able to go through and say, wait, let's stop the runaway thinking, let's stop the runaway emotions, let's just take a moment.
Yeah. And I think for me, I've always been good in a crisis. Some people freak out in a crisis. I am like zone in
Mm-hmm.
and I handle that shit.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I was many years ago was traveling overseas and there was a bomb that went off in a train station and people were running out. Me and my friend ran in to help.
Mm.
We didn't even think about it. And then you think of, I remember years ago, one of my friend's kids fell out of a tree and scraped his whole face down the on the
Oh,
tree.
oh gosh.
It was an awful situation, and everyone's just standing around freaking out. And I just scooped him up. I'm like, "Let's go!" Like, got him in the car. We went to the hospital. It was just people freak out sometimes, and that seems to be when I am the calmest.
And
It's weird, but I think that also helps me in my own, like, oh my God, the world's on
yeah.
fire for me, and
Mm-hmm.
nope, we're gonna section this off and compartmentalize and get it handled. Like, I don't tend to freak out kind of like some people do around stuff. So I think that may also make it a little bit easier for me to manage these two different brains. And I can share a personal example. I've been on this weight loss journey and I've lost, I don't know, 40-ish pounds. It's probably 45 a couple days ago, but Christmas parties and drinks and food. My mom's cooking up a few pounds, but that's okay. But it's funny. I found myself, I love to have a piece of dark chocolate every day. And I have done that pretty much this whole journey. And sometimes I have two. And I started to ask myself a really simple question so that I didn't eat the chocolate if it wasn't on my plan, which I always have always one piece on my plan. Sometimes I want a second piece.
Mm-hmm.
And I will, people grab, my coach calls it grab assing. Like, you just grab food. You pass by peanuts, you grab some peanuts, whatever. My thing is chocolate. So I started to ask myself, what if this weren't available to you right now? What would you do? And that simple thought changes my habit brain to go, oh, you would probably just drink some water, or you might go play with the dogs, or like, you're doing it because you need a break. So go take a break.
Mm-hmm.
You don't actually need the chocolate. You're not hungry. So you don't need the chocolate. Like, you eat when you're hungry and that's it. And I'm not hungry, but I still want that chocolate. So it's like, you got to just check in. What else is going on?
Mm-hmm.
And so you can do that with any of your habits. And just say, if this weren't available to me right now, what else would I do? It's a great question.
It is a great question. And I have my own personal experience with that would be most certainly related to smoking cigarettes, which I did for decades.
I did not know this.
Yes, yes. And it's been decades. But it was a way to carve out some space. It was a way to say, okay, it's just me and this is my time. I could even have been busy doing something else while it was going on, but I made this choice about how I was going to invest that time. And you talk about the habit brain, times of the day, days of the week, playing softball, golfing, whatever it might be, getting up in the morning, keys into the car. And people have, not everyone, but people who have developed habits that are around those kinds of specific triggers.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And becoming aware of that, saying, wait a minute, this is about the time I should, but why? Why? No, I don't need that. Why in the world would I want to do that? It takes a lot of work. And people who are dealing with those kinds of, especially those behaviors and habits that are destructive, the things that cause more harm than good. And there are other ways for me to carve 7 minutes out of my day than to ingest poison.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, that habit brain, I can tell you after all of these decades, that it's still every once in a while kicks up with a thought. And I think, shut the heck up. No way. Done. But those pathways, I don't know that
they run deep.
And and they may get clogged up, and that's really good. And as much as we can do to tamp them down, and I'm talking about especially those that are destructive physically, but they exist in all elements of our life. Our patterns of thought, our patterns of action.
And that's why it's so important to be able to know that you've got two brains. You've got that habit brain that is just going to keep, how many decades later, you still have that, oh, I want a cigarette, when certain things happen. That is a deeply rooted thing. It's never really going to go away. But the more you learn how to talk back to it, you learn how to have your CEO brain in charge and not your habit brain in charge, it becomes easier to manage it. I won't say it's easy, but it's easier to manage it when you can rely on that CEO brain to be in charge. And it takes work and effort to be able to manage that. And not just for things that are addictive habits. Eating chocolate is an addictive habit. It is not anything other than rooted in some sort of addictive habit. Same with cigarettes. But it could be something as simple as, I don't know. I can't think of something, but like any Starbucks. Yeah. Just anything, any habit you have.
To all the Starbucks lovers out there,
I like a good Starbucks once in a while. Yeah. When we worked downtown, I would have one almost every day, which is ridiculous. Now I have one maybe once a month. But breaking those habits really, it's a powerful thing when you can gain control over the habit brain. And that helps with all those I shoulds, I shouldn't. And having that control can really help manage just being more in tune, less regret, less should, and helps you just manage things in a much more calm and effective way.
I think it sounds like being able to establish a partnership between those two brains. It says, okay, CEO brain has this more pragmatic view of things and can sense that triggers are coming. And the habit brain, which is working on trying to eliminate or remove or reduce certain...
It can feel like sabotage sometimes.
Yes. Oh, yes. But being able to have that partnership in place enough so that when things get tough, it's not about an argument. It's about a collaboration. It's that, okay, CEO brain's going to take that, not high road so much as pragmatic and objective and saying, okay, let's look at the facts here. And the habit brain's going, but.
But this is the way we've always done it.
Yeah, and I'm feeling insecure.
I want to do it this way.
Right. Right.
It's almost like they always say you've got your good angel and your bad angel sitting, or the angel and devil sitting on your shoulders. That's what it's like.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's a great visual, though. And being able to explore that in light of things, as we've hinted at, where family gatherings, for whatever reason, work parties, oh my goodness, I don't know, do they do those anymore? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So for those who are listening and not watching, Michelle was nodding.
Sorry, I nodded my head, yes.
And those, okay, I was in corporate America starting in the early 70s. So it certainly has morphed.
When she was 5.
Yeah, when I was 5. So those events have certainly morphed. But in the beginning, and especially as women were becoming more prominent, there were more of us in the workplace, and that the challenge about what was it, how do you act when a woman is your peer and you're not a woman? You know, that was some rough stuff. Those were rough times. But anyway, it's about those gatherings where those kinds of challenges or disquiets or discomforts might be able to, or might find themselves coming up. And then it's like, okay, I have a choice on how I manage this. And it doesn't involve should, unless it's about what I should do for me. Then it's okay to should all over myself.
I would say, what could I do for me instead of what should I do for me?
See how that coach stuff works?
Because should just brings, like, you think about neuro-linguistic programming. Oh my God, I'm such a nerd. When you think about neuro-linguistic programming and how words have reactions. Should makes it feel like, oh, I got to do this whether I want to or not, versus could, it's a choice.
Mm-hmm.
No.
That's wonderful.
So I would could your way instead of should your way.
Isn't that a wonderful way to wrap up this particular conversation?
I think it is.
Well, and thank you for that segue, DocShellie. I'm Carla Lewis.
So ridiculous. I'm DocShellie. Thanks so much for listening. If you like what you hear, share with your friends. See you next time.
You could even share with your enemies if you like. There might be something in it for them too.
Could be.
Bye.
Bye.
So,
life keeps lifing.
It does. And so being able to take a look at those things and say, you know what, every once in a while, the shift of focus is required and people are going to be affected. Because if you start something, there's usually something that stops as a balancing part of that equation.